name's Joe, and with Spider-Man Homecoming about to hit theaters, I thought today it would be fun to talk about the Spider-Man movie franchises and show you my collection of Spider-Man action figures. The only Spider-Man movies I enjoyed enough to buy and add to my collection were the first two by Sam Raimi. And I think most people prefer Spider-Man 2, but I've always been really partial to the first one. I think Willem Dafoe was a great choice for Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin. I especially like the parts where he's talking to himself in the mirror and he's got split personalities like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. And when he's holding Mary Jane in the cable car full of Boy Scouts and says that line about a sadistic choice, I thought that was great. Also, I've heard people complain about Tobey Maguire, that he's too old. It's pretty commonplace, I think, for Hollywood to cast 20-somethings as teenage characters. And since Tobey Maguire's got a baby face, I think he's really believable as a 17 or 18-year-old. He's also really earnest and funny. I actually really like the entire cast. Aunt May, Uncle Ben, even Franco as Harry Osborn. I think he's really good too. The only real weak link is Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane. She hasn't really done anything as good as her role in Interview with a Vampire since then, in my opinion. Even though she's not great in this, she's still okay. And I think that her and Tobey Maguire have pretty good chemistry. And I actually really like Spider-Man 2 a lot also. I just don't think that Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus is as compelling as Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin as a villain. Also, it kind of always bothered me that at the end they're like, oh, how do we stop this fusion reactor doomsday device? And he's like, I don't know, just drop it in some water, I guess. Good thing I built it on this rickety dock over the bay. And we all know what a big pile of shit Spider-Man 3 turned out to be. I remember reading online at the time that Sam Raimi originally wanted the Vulture and Black Cat to be the villains, but Sony interfered too much and shoehorned in Venom. When you watch that movie, it's pretty obvious that it was made by committee. So several years later, Sony reboots the Spider-Man franchise with The Amazing Spider-Man. And the day it came out, my parents happened to be staying the night at my house. They were getting ready to leave town the next day, and I live pretty close to the airport. So after we got done eating dinner that night, I talked everybody into going to see Spider-Man with me. And my dad fell asleep, and my mom kept leaning over and asking me how much longer the movie was going to be. It was just really, really dull. I think they tried too hard to imitate The Dark Knight, and Spider-Man is a character who can brood, like that's fine, but I don't think the dark, gritty, realistic tone really meshes well in a movie where the antagonist is trying to turn everyone in New York into a giant lizard person. I thought Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was more obnoxious and irritating than anything else, and I don't think he had very good chemistry with Emma Stone either. All they did was like stutter and stammer at each other. It was cringe-inducing and painful to watch. Now I heard people say, oh, it's better than the old Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies because he's got the real web shooters and he's with Gwen Stacy, his first girlfriend, so it's more like the comic book, so it's better. Well, first of all, he stole the web shooters from Oscorp. He didn't invent them himself like he does in the comic books, right? And another thing, in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, the biological web shooters, that fits in with his power set perfectly, and you don't have to take the time to explain how he invents the web shooters and the cartridge belt. It streamlines the movie. And technically, I think that Betty Brant was Peter Parker's first girlfriend, not Gwen Stacy, so that's not entirely accurate either. I hated The Amazing Spider-Man so much that I didn't even bother watching the second one. I still haven't seen it. And from everything I've seen and heard about it, it sounds like I really dodged a bullet. The good thing about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is that it was a critical failure and didn't perform at the box office like Sony wanted it to. So they have to admit that they don't know what to do with the character and give creative control back to Marvel. So I'm really happy about Spider-Man coming into the MCU. I really loved his appearance in Captain America Civil War, and I'm really excited about Spider-Man Homecoming. My wife's taking me to go see it for our anniversary this weekend. I hope Spider-Man Homecoming is good. I hope that Tom Holland is good and that he actually enjoys playing Spider-Man so he continues to do it for years and years like Hugh Jackman and Wolverine. Because I'm getting sick and tired of seeing Peter Parker in high school. In the comic books, Spider-Man has been an adult for decades. We've got 2 movie series, about to have a 3rd one now, where Spider-Man is in high school again, dealing with the same high school movie tropes that we've already seen a million times. Like, late for school, didn't get your homework done, in past curfew, dealing with bullies, awkward around girls. I would like to get past that point. That's why I hope that Tom Holland continues to play Spider-Man for years to come so that we can see an adult Spider-Man, because there's so many other potential stories they could tell. Okay, now that I've got my rant out of the way, let's talk about my collection of Spider-Man action figures. Cheers! Alright, let's kick things off with the Marvel Legends Pizza Spider-Man. A lot of people refer to him as such because he came with a slice of pizza as an accessory. He was part of the Hobgoblin wave, and he's a really solid Spider-Man figure. He's my go-to Spider-Man. This Spider-Man figure comes with 2 wall-crawling hands, 2 thwip, web-shooting hands, and 2 closed-fisted hands. He also comes with a regular head sculpt and an alternate head sculpt with the mask pulled up halfway, and obviously a slice of pizza. Now, this is a really great figure with good articulation, including the butterfly joints of the shoulder and those really great ankle rockers. This body's been reused on a number of other Marvel Legends figures. It's been reused for another Spider-Man that came in the Raft box set that was part of the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, and the only difference, I think, is a slightly different color scheme. I think the colors of the Raft Spider-Man are a little bit darker, and he has a different head sculpt with bigger Todd McFarlane-esque bug eyes. So this figure wasn't hard to find, really, but he's very popular and he's gone up in price on the secondary market. If I had to pay $35 for him, I think I'd probably be happy with that purchase. Much more than that, though, I think is a little too much. And you know, keep in mind, Hasbro may very well reissue this figure. They might do a slight update to him, you know, with different accessories or something. Maybe just wait instead of paying, you know, 60 or 70 or $100 or however much they want for him on eBay. And so this is a Green Goblin from the recent Sandman Build-A-Figure wave, and I really like this figure a lot. The articulation's very good. My only real gripe with him is I think that the collar should have been sculpted, and I think the paint on his neck and his face is a little bit too heavy. I think it's just a little too dark, and you can't see all the cool sculpted detail and stuff because it's just a little too heavy-handed there. But this figure's really cool. I probably wouldn't have bought him, except I found him at Target for like $12, and they were trying to get rid of some of the older Spider-Man Marvel Legends figures. Even though he's really cool, I've got another Green Goblin figure that I'll show you in a little while that I like just as well, and even though this figure is more posable than that one, I've got him in pretty much the same pose as I have the other one in. Alright, here's my custom Mary Jane Watson figure. This is basically just a repaint of a Sons of Anarchy figure that I bought for like $5 on clearance. I've never watched Sons of Anarchy, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think this character was played by Katie Siegel, who played Peggy Bundy on Married with Children and did the voice of Leela on Futurama. Basically, I just repainted the figure. I did sculpt her cheeks in a little bit to make them look a little fuller, and I shaved down her nose a little bit. It's not 100% perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. So I did manage to find the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Mary Jane 2-pack at Toys R Us, and if I hadn't already made my Mary Jane custom figure, I definitely would have opened this up just for the Mary Jane. But the thing is, I really don't need another Spider-Man figure, and this Mary Jane, I just think she looks bland. I can already tell she has paint problems along her ankles there. I don't like her freckles at all, and not real crazy about the shading in her hair. And I just think she looks kind of bland, especially for a character that was at one point a fashion model. I think my figure looks a lot more fashionable, and you can tell they're the same height. And, you know, mine's not very posable at all, but, you know, what are you going to do with Mary Jane anyway? You know, she's just probably going to stand around. So I'm thinking about either returning this or trying to use it for a trade or trying to resell it myself. I haven't decided yet. So this is the Marvel Select Venom figure, and before this figure came out, I went back and forth for a long time trying to determine which one was the best Venom figure by Toy Biz, and you know how much I wanted to spend on one on eBay. And I'm really glad I waited, because this figure's great. He's everything that I wanted from a Venom figure and more. He's got the classic head sculpt on now, but he comes with lots and lots of accessories. Alright, so this Venom figure comes with tons of really cool stuff. He's got the original kind of first appearance, like Todd McFarlane style head. He's got the nasty tongue head, the tongue sticking out and some slime on his jaw there. And then he's got like a transforming Eddie Brock head that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. And he comes with these big claw hands that are really cool. Also these alternate closed-fisted hands. And he comes with this add-on part that's really awesome too. Right, so this is from a storyline called The Madness, I think. And I haven't read it, so I can't really get into it too much. But as far as the toy goes, this is really awesome accessory. This part clips onto Venom's back, and it has 4 articulated heads. These all move around. It has, let's see, 2 articulated arms, and then the figure also comes with these other arms that plug into the sides of his forearms. And I just think that's really, really cool. I think it's pretty good value for your money. So there's this like never-ending debate over whether you can mix and match Marvel Legends and Marvel Select figures, and I think this is obvious that you can with certain characters, especially like this Venom. I think they scale really, really well together. You know, obviously Venom's supposed to be a bigger character anyway. I just don't understand why you'd want to, you know, spend scalper prices for a, you know, old crappy Toy Biz Marvel Legends Venom when you could buy this one, you know, from anywhere from, you know, $20 to $30. I think they're usually around $25, $27, I think, at the most. And he comes with a lot of extra gear, and I think he looks really great. He's really posable, and I'm super happy with this Venom figure. While we're on the topic of symbiotes, here's the Marvel Legends Carnage from the Ultimate Green Goblin wave. I've heard a lot of people complain that the black lines that should have been sculpted detail instead of just being painted on, and I disagree. I think he looks like he walked right off the comic book page. You know, a lot of times comic book artists draw like a nude body and then fill in the detail. So I think this looks exactly like he did in the comics. Also, some of the older Toy Biz Carnage figures that did have the sculpted lines on there, they just look like a sloppy mess. And the black lines on here are all real crisp and sharp. The Marvel Select Carnage figure looks really, really cool. He actually comes with interchangeable like hands that are the axe weapons and stuff that he uses in the comics, and that would be a neat figure to get too. I don't have that one to show you, but for my money, I think this is probably the best Carnage figure. Alright, here's a blast from the past. This is a Hasbro Dr. Octopus figure. I think it came from a line called Spider-Man Origins. I'm not 100% sure. It's basically like a Spider-Man Classics line. This is the same mold that Toy Biz used for their Marvel Legends Dr. Octopus figure, just in a different paint scheme. This is more in line with the Ultimate costume, I guess. I would much prefer to have one in the kind of classic, you know, green and yellow color scheme instead of this, but I've never been able to find one at a decent price. So until I do, or until someone makes a comparable Dr. Octopus figure to go with my 6 and 7 inch scale figures, then this will have to do. But I still really like him a lot. I didn't pay that much money for this figure. I think maybe 10 or 15 bucks at the most, so it's easy for me to overlook his shortcomings. But the paint on his face and his head really is pretty whack.
I'm eventually going to take the time to fix that. Also, the shade of green on his torso is completely different than on his limbs. And it's really hard to get this figure to stand on his own 2 feet there. That's why I have the tentacles wound underneath him like that to kind of give him some stability and also kind of raise him up a little bit, give him some height. So I don't know if you noticed or not, but I have this clear plastic rubber band wrapped around his tentacles in the back. And that's not because any of them are broken or anything like that, but I like to use this clear plastic suction cup with a hook on it to attach him to the inside of my glass Detolf cabinets. And basically, he takes up a lot of real estate with his tentacles flared out like this. And with this, I can stick him to the inside of the cabinet, elevated up above the other figures, so he doesn't take up as much room. And I think it looks cool, like he's leaping in to attack Spider-Man. This is an older Spider-Man Classics figure. This is called a shoot and grab Spider-Man, I think. And basically the point of this was he had an action feature gimmick or whatever where he had a projectile that shot out of his forearm to make it look like he was shooting web from his web shooter and grabbing a trash can and pulling it back to him. And, you know, I don't care about the action feature really, but he had a hole drilled in his wrist there, so I made my own custom web out of twisty ties and put it in there. And I don't know what it is, for whatever reason, I really like this figure a lot. He's kind of pre-posed, and that's too bad, but the sculpting on him I think is really cool, and he hangs out in the back of my display anyway, but I thought I'd include him on here, even though that I know these figures aren't really popular with collectors, but I like this one a lot for some reason. Alright, here's the Marvel Select Rhino figure. I think the paint and sculpted detail in this figure is out of this world. I really like him a lot. This is exactly what I think of when I think of Rhino in my head, like a classic version of him. And outside of the articulation department, I think Marvel Select totally outclassed Hasbro with their Build-A-Figure of Rhino. So I really love the scale between these two figures. I think this is another prime example of how you can use Marvel Select figures to fill in gaps in your Marvel Legends collection. Also for a fraction of the price. You know, to get a figure this size, Hasbro would force you to buy a bunch of figures you don't want. So I'm really happy with this figure overall, but my only real gripe with him is that he seems to be producing this weird, like, powdery, silvery dust all over him, and you clean him off, and then it just comes back over time. It's really strange. I've noticed something similar with my DC Universe figures by Mattel. They'll have parts on them that produce this weird, you know, kind of chalky powder that just wipes right off, but I don't know what it is or why it's happening, but I'm sure it's not picking up on camera, but it's really, really strange. And you wipe it off with your fingers, or you get done handling the Rhino figure here, and then you have this weird silvery powder on your fingertips. It's real strange, and I hope it's not giving me cancer. Alright, here's the Marvel Legends Shocker figure from the recent Sandman Build-A-Figure wave. And this is a pretty decent figure. He's basically just a repaint of the Bucky Cap mold again. He's got a few new parts. I think his head's new, his forearms and his hands, and then he's got those knee pads on. But other than that, he's just your standard Bucky Cap. Not a whole lot to talk about here. He was kind of hard to find when he first came out, but I think it's kind of leveled off a little bit, and I've seen him several times at retail. I think if you went out looking for him today, I don't think you'd have too much trouble finding him, either at retail or online. I don't think you'd have to pay more than retail for him either. And this figure comes with two blast effect pieces like this. I'm kind of on the fence about them. I'm not sure if I like them or not.
This video ran a lot longer than I originally intended, so I'm going to try something new and split this up into different parts. So make sure you come back for the next chapter of my Spider-Man action figure collection. Take care. Bye.